Well, so we have to do a review of the news. But that was a good song there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it, love it.
I didn't know the song existed. I've never watched it before.
Glory.
I think it's from the last album.
He features Young L in it. Young L, quite a talented vocalist. He has that sort of Nigerian
He's a Ghanaian
flavor. I believe he is actually. But he has a Nigerian flavor to his style. It's very nice. Complements Sarkodie's lyrics quite well. And you notice Sarkodie's style is evolving as well. He's becoming quite sartorial, you know.
You see,
going for the suits and ties and all of that.
It's growing, guys. It's growing. Yeah.
It looks more mature now in his music
great music
videos.
still from the what does he call himself again?
Success Music?
Yes, so that's the name of his label, right?
That's the name of it.
Yes. And no matter what happens to our economy, for Sarkodie, money no be problem.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Why is it that all the rappers seem to have no problem with money?
Yeah, well,
Once our banks are collapsing, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. They don't say with the banks?
It's a thing you say to stay alive, man.
Okay, like you tend to motivate
it's like
yourself.
a bragging, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the game.
Money
right?
no be problem.
Yeah, but
When you even say it, like it.
Money no be problem.
Yeah, like you feel it.
it's
Charlie,
Charlie,
but
but
you
you
go
self-affirming, right?
But Charlie,
Yeah.
if you
And
go
by the
keep-
way, money no be problem doesn't mean I'm rich. Oh. It just means that even if I'm poor, it's not a problem.
Yeah, I know. I guess it puts what she said into perspective. You get to motivate yourself, knowing
That's
that
right.
there's always a better day.
I'm
somewhere.
not sure I said it meaning that.
All right.
Okay, but guys, I have to say thank you to the person who made my outfit. And I'll be rocking
good.
her every Thursday
You look
and
like
Friday here on the show.
Nigerian
So the
queen at this
fabric from Woodin
Yeah.
and the maker, the designer is Ajua Yebua Clothing. Just check her out on Instagram.
Oh, should I also thank somebody?
Yeah, you can.
This is
Did you
not
sew-
Woodin. You
did
can
sew
only
this?
say that to Woodin.
Did you sew this?
If it's not Woodin,
Well, I have to thank myself
not
for buying
on.
it. But of course, Robert and Sons continues to provide my eyewear.
Wow.
And,
why you wear different one every day? Because
I have a few.
hey,
I use contact lenses.
And they're
really.
so kind to me, you know, they're so kind to me. They always look out for the latest designs and call me over to try them on.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to a new pair, which I'll be introducing
What kind of lobbying
to
is
all
it?
of you very
Really?
soon. But
I wear
thank you and
contacts.
good morning to Robert and Sons, Monique and the team. You're doing fantastic work.
but I'm waiting for you guys to be rocking your Woodin on Thursdays and Fridays.
Not this
That's
Thursday. Mine is not ready.
Yeah. Well, I said Thursdays and Fridays.
Media,
Tomorrow is
nobody-
Friday. Mine is not ready.
Nobody has even told me that.
Oh,
it
Charlie,
is
you're
so.
looking mobile like
I
that. I'll
You
fix
try
you.
like Woody, no?
I'll fix you.
Le créateur.
Yeah.
Creative.
All right, let's tell you what's making headlines in the newspapers, and then we'll zero in on a few. A lot of us are still waking up and feeling a bit dizzy, like we're still not clear in our minds with what the banks have done to us in the past couple of years. We're only getting to know the details, particularly with regards Capital Bank and UT Bank. Let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper, front page of the Times. SIC to maximize insurance reach with technology. Northern region farmers cry over shortage of fertilizer coupons, but Ministry of Food and Agriculture dismisses claim. Also, PIA questions non-utilization of 400 million Ghana cedis oil money. Ghana cocoa in danger. Cocoa board laments illegal miners takeover of farms. And then cashew rubber plantations replacing cocoa farms. These are the front page headlines. On the back page of the Times, Ghana out of under 20. The Women's World Cup after 4-0 loss to Netherlands. I think the first one against France, it was 3-1, was it, or 4-1?
I watched it yesterday.
Charlie, they smashed
4-1.
us. We're out.
I thought it was 4-1.
England, Brazil share points. And then Korea, DPR ends valuable win over Mexico. So that's it for the front back page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper.
I have the daily graphic.
Was Nyanti Chia the play? No, welcome.
I have the daily graphic and the banner headline with a picture of the president holding up a green book. I didn't say it's the green book, but it is green. It's a book. The headline is, "Will modernize public sector," President declares at launch of 5-year reform strategy. Now, it's amazing. This is quite a major event. But because of what's happening, what else is happening in the news cycle, we kind of missed it. Public sector reform. Again,
Oh, that was
5
yesterday.
years. Yes, 5-year plan. to reform our public sector, and I'll tell you more about that story later. Also, let's maintain 65 ministers in government. That's a recommendation of the minority leader. He said that at the same event. Council of State presents report to President Akufo Addo, and interesting details of the report of the work of the Council of State. Also, Iyoko summons Men's Gold boss for questioning, but company says he's done no wrong. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, World Cup over for black princesses, and you see a picture of two black princesses attempting to tackle one Netherlands player, and the woman looks, the Netherlands player looks twice as tall as our two.
I think they're averagely some of the tallest people in the world.
Yes, indeed. And this is an example of such. You'll also find on the back page, North Korea bounce back with Mexico win. All the detail in the Daily Graphic.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to do the next? I should continue.
Sure, let me just do all the ones I have in my hands. 1,350 benefit from Presidential Business Support Program. This was a story we saw in the papers yesterday, and that's the one that one newspaper was suggesting that Nana was funding it, when actually it's taxpayers' money. Bank of Ghana officials, shareholders complicit in UT and Capital Bank's crisis. Now, the analysis has gone back to the beginning to look at the first two banks that got collapsed, UT and Capital Bank. And the detail I'm going to share with you this morning, it will blow your mind, of how Bank of Ghana officials made this possible, and how, of course, the directors and shareholders of Capital Bank were on a feeding spree, feeding frenzy to empty the bread, like I demonstrated the other day. Also, Access Bank launches fist against fistula. Ouch. Okay, Access Bank launches Fist Against Fistula, and that's a campaign. And we can see the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection in this picture, somebody who, if we are to believe the rumors coming out of Flagstaff, Jubilee House, forgive me, all NPP government members, that if we're to believe those rumors, she may not be in that position for much longer. But that is another story in one of the other papers. Nzima Group roots for Guzi Tando as NDC 2020 flag bearer, and $10 billion gone in a puff of hot air, according to the Daily Statesman. Mahama's NDC agreed sky-high gas price under juicy contracts. I wonder whether this is to take advantage of the Ameri conversation to bring in other news about other energy deals. Also, Ghanaians unhappy with public sector. That's according to the president. Well, knowing the problem is the first step, isn't it?
Definitely. Let's do the Daily Guide newspaper. It has on the front page, big cabinet shake-up. We've been saying this for days. Once the Daily Guide also says it, it means that it's confirmed. Alrighty. EC chief caught in age scandal. A happy man. A story attributed to the president. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo Addo. Iyoko probes Men's Gold, even though the report subsequently circulating on social media with people I know working with Nam1 and Men's Gold, etc., saying that he was in his office. Because Iyoko apparently had also come out that they hadn't invited the gentleman. Unity Oil boss gets honorary professorship, and basically those are the story. But let's go to the center spread. Nana Texan was instrumental to my career. We also have Beyonce says she nearly died while delivering her twins, and I'm still learning to act Ahonfe Patri. That's center spread of the news one. I'm sorry that you can, but there's also a story about Cheidakwa embraces gay sexuality with more photos. We're told that he is, sorry that I'm saying she, because the picture here shows him having dressed like a woman, so I'm sorry. Cheidakwa, fashion editor for Gay Times magazine in the UK.
Let's do the Business Finder newspaper. Front page of the Business Finder. 5-year plan will modernize public sector, according to President Akufo Addo. Ghana's private sector will thrive, again attributed to the president. Banking sector, Bank of Ghana's actions to spur investor confidence. Details of that on page 2, and they've got some market summary also on the front page. The macroeconomic targets, figures, consumer price inflation, interest rates, Ghana stock exchange rate, currencies, and the commodities. So You can check it out. It's on the front page of the Finder, the Business Finder, actually. The Finder that turns business on Thursdays. That's it for the paper.
Well, so we continue with the Daily Dispatch newspaper. It has on the front page, Cabinet Insider on reshuffle. It is a limited one, but some ministers will be sacked. The story is on the back page of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Campaign to elect NDC's 2020 presidential slots will be dirty and divisive. That's on page 12. But Finance Ministry and VRA were consulted in new Ameri deal. Bank closure. Was the Bank of Ghana a prosecutor or a judge in its own courts? It's a question that the Daily Dispatch seemed to be asking. On the back page, though, we have Asiedun Ketia and Koku Anyedoho to battle for NDC General Secretary position. The NDC General Secretary was in the studio yesterday. I asked him whether he had any qualms, any difficulty. He said, no, Charlie. Give him day. Today, newspaper has a story. Yoko chases men's gold CEO. Other stories on the front page of the Today newspaper. Coalition petitions president to reinstate to dismiss fire officers. And we have other stories there. What will NDC gurus endorse Pio? So because of that, we decided to invite the chairman for NDC Greater Accra, Joseph Niadekoka, ask him what has been done by some of these NDC chair people was appropriate, was in line with the party's regulations, so to speak.
Okay, now let's get into the details of some of the stories. We'll begin the Ghanaian Times newspaper. This story about PIAC questioning non-utilization of some 400 million Ghana cedis oil money. That story is on page 18. Just a bit of that for you in the Ghanaian Times. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee is demanding answers from the government on why 400 million Ghana cedis out of the 700 million Ghana cedis oil money approved by Parliament to support last year's budget was not utilized. And according to the committee, tasked with the oversight responsibility of monitoring and evaluating the management of Ghana's petroleum resources by the government and relevant stakeholder institutions, only 300 million Ghana cedis of the more than 700 million Ghana cedis approved by Parliament under the annual budget funding amounts was used by the government. So the chairman, Steve Manteal, doctor, who disclosed this to the media during an engagement with think tanks in the country, said its 2017 report revealed that out of the 700 million Ghana cedis under the ABFA approved by Parliament in 2017 to support the budget, only 300 million Ghana cedis was expended by government by the end of 2017. So that's why the question of Nasikana Kaniweng is being asked. So hopefully, is it hopefully?
Hope is
in
not
the
a
pipeline.
strategy, is what they keep telling us.
In the pipeline, processes will lead up, you know, the way we say.
As finding what we use the money for.
And you know that if you look at the PIAG report, you go to their site, the PIAG report is there. They usually do half year and full year. You get to find that government sometimes misapplies the money. 2, the projects are inflated. And you go, because they go around, they go to the sites, they go and look at the buildings and the structures. And recently, there was another tour that was undertaken by officials of PIAG. They went to the 3 northern regions areas in Bonafo, and they saw that some of the targeted projects for which this money was supposed to be used for, you look at the project vis-a-vis what's on the books, and they look at the quantities and say...
The books looked finer than what was on the ground.
Even...
There were details in the books.
Yeah, and I saw a video of some compilation, and it doesn't look good.
You know, the real problem with how we do things in this country is that when we are making a law, you will notice that we are looking ahead to the event of us breaking that law, okay? And we plan for it. So when we set up PIAC, we didn't connect their work or their mandate to any law enforcement. We didn't link it in any way to consequences. So that they have turned into a civil society organization.
Even though in essence it is a state organization.
Yes, but unfortunately,
they just make the revelations.
we've designed it to do nothing. because we looked into the future. We thought, look, Charlie, we have to be able to take this money and do what we want with it. So even if the people of Ghana say they want accountability, let's set up accountability in a way that so that they can do what they like and we can do what we like. And that's how we make laws in this country. When we were creating a law for special prosecutor, we went through the same difficulty. People trying to set things up so that we can escape the impact of the office.
Ultimately.
You know, that's how we plan in this country. We design things for the benefit of criminals, just in case we have to become one day.
It's interesting. Now, just above this story of PIAC is another story. We actually carried it in our news a bit earlier. GII launches Interfaith Anti-Corruption Project. And this is interesting.
And it's not the first time we've had an interfaith corruption activity.
Today, the Deputy Commissioner of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Richard Quayson, has questioned the teachings religious groups offer their members as corruption continues to eat deep into the social fabric of the Ghanaian citizenry. And here's the quote. For people that are notoriously religious, you wonder how come we're so hospitable to corruption, the very thing our faiths consider as abomination. So what has gone wrong with our faith? Mr. Quayson asked at the launch of the Ghana Integrity Initiative's Interfaith Anti-Corruption Project in Accra yesterday.
You know, Dr. Buzia, way back in 1971, and Ace Ananankoma posted on his Facebook page a newspaper clipping of Dr. Buzia, or Professor Buzia at the time, saying that our problem we have in Ghana is bribe. 1971.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's grown and developed.
Now,
and it's become sophisticated.
You see, the thing too is that because we feel we are religious, before Kojo comes in, we have insulated the church in such a way that the laws have not been able to touch the church. Overall, the church becomes the platform everybody congregates on. So you have the prosecutor, the police, the judge, the journalist, the businessman, everybody congregating at the church. And the rallying points or the rallying person they congregate around is the head of the church. So if the head of the church becomes known, powerful, becomes an influencer, it becomes difficult if the church goes wrong. For those who have been rallying around that personality or those people to say, my friend, you did wrong. So that's where we are.
Do you know, today I said I won't say anything controversial.
We are not. I hope it's not controversial.
Oh well, it's an opinion. Let me start by saying that.
When he gives a disclaimer,
this is an opinion.
Issues a disclaimer.
Okay, it's an opinion. All right. You know, I have always believed personally that there is a little too much of elements of traditional religion in how we practice Christianity.
You're saying that our social-cultural has influenced the way we practice.
Yes. So, for example, if you have a problem, you go to your malam or your and then you tell your malam, the malam says, "Bring this, and I'll solve your problem." And then you bring it, and he solves the problem. And it doesn't matter what your problem is. Okay. Usually, it's you want to kill someone, or you want to harm someone, or you want to marry someone, or you want to some personal gain.
Money.
Okay. We've applied that to our application of our practice of Christianity. So really our preachers, very often in the back of our minds, we approach them like malams, and they encourage it. You know, so pay your tithe and you will, you prosper, you get money.
I hope the argument is not about tithing. I think
no, as for tithing,
we have
as for tithing, we should as Christians, we must stop arguing about tithe, because the Bible was clear on what a tithe is. In Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22 to 29.
Pastor Kojo,
it is the only.
Can we check if
the only text in the Bible?
Is actually right?
Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22 to 29
is
the only text in the Bible that actually describes how to tithe.
Okay.
All other references talk about tithing and the consequence of not tithing, but only in this text does it say this is how to tithe. And if you have not read it, you are tithing wrong.
Okay, so
anyway,
Gomez,
back to my
before
point.
You continue, please pull out that bit for us.
Yes.
After Kojo ends with his
14,
submission. We'll share it with
22
everybody.
to 29. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Continue.
So back to this thing. So we tend to approach Christianity
same way,
like that. Okay, and that's the reason why Christian leaders don't necessarily
find it wrong.
Yes, or ostracize wrongdoers. Okay, because they believe that it's really a hand go, hand come type of thing. Okay, so you bring wealth into the church, we give you honor.
And counsel.
Yes. Okay, you give me money, I pray for you to get married. You buy my books, you will get blessed. You know, you buy my oil or whatever. And it is really the Malam relationship that we brought into the church. And that's how we choose to practice Christianity.
Have you ever gone to a Malam
That's why, no, but we've seen it. We've seen it in movies, right? And but that is why, and we know of things that happen at places like Antoi and Nogopo and so forth. Okay, we try to bring that into Christianity, and that is the reason why, when it comes to corruption, the church is perhaps the last place we should go for support in fighting against corruption. Because honestly, I don't see how.
What if the church leader themselves are perpetrating the corrupt?
That also becomes a problem.
Because they are supposed to give you counsel.
And now we are hearing the names of some of our biggest church leaders, being brought up in these banking scandals. And you ask yourself, how do we approach this, and how do we get the church to actually become a partner in fighting corruption?
So let's go to Pastor Kujo's
Deuteronomy 14,
not yet
22.
ordained pastor.
You said Deuteronomy 14,
22.
Okay.
Yes. Do you want me to read it?
So only 22. Be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year.
Mm-hmm. I said 22 to 29.
Okay.
It's not very long. Let me read it.
It is very long, actually.
It's not that long. Be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. 23. Eat the tithe of your grain, new wine and olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and flock in the presence of the Lord your God at a place he will choose as a dwelling for his name, so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always. Now note it said eat. I'll continue. But if that place is too distant and you have been blessed by the Lord your God and cannot carry your tithe, because the place where the Lord will choose to put his name is so far away, then exchange your tithe for silver and take the silver with you and go to the place the Lord your God will choose. Use the silver to buy whatever you like. Now listen, cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you wish. Then you and your household shall eat there in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice. 27. And do not neglect the Levites living in your towns, for they have no allotment or inheritance of their own. 28. At the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce and store it in your towns, so that the Levites who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the foreigners and the fatherless and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be, what's the rest? That's the end, right?
Praise be to
Patrick,
God.
scroll up. It's not the end.
It's the end. We're done.
Just one more
29,
line. One more line.
Where we are.
And be satisfied, and so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. So listen, this is clear. There's no room for misinterpretation. It says, take a tenth of what you earn, take it to church, and eat it in the presence of God. That is tithe.
But they say give some to the Levites.
That's right.
Okay.
Every third. Okay. Every third tithe should not be eaten, but rather put in the storehouse
I have a feeling
for the
that
Levites.
The rest of the conversation could be centered around this. Because
Anyway,
Patrick Gomez, our director,
please
says,
read it for yourself.
Notes, it says each year. But
It's due.
Look,
Due
it has asked for that.
11, 22,
listen,
20.
guys. This is a
14,
conversation we could
22,
have on a
20.
Friday.
I think so.
Indeed.
Tomorrow
Indeed.
is Friday.
We can get...
We're having this conversation tomorrow. Is that what you said?
Pastor
Yes.
Hemaku in the studio.
Yes.
And then we can deal with this
Let's
subject.
do it.
Hallelujah.
Deuteronomy. Why has your pastor never quoted Deuteronomy 14:22 to you before?
I've heard it quoted before.
Okay, you know what?
the
But
man.
I think that it's subject to your interpretation. And
Why
interpretation
should it be subject to interpretation?
Okay.
It's in English language.
If you have an opinion...
This is not King
no.
James. This is New International
International
Version.
We
That's
will
why-
read King
that's
James.
why you're-
We
this
will
your
read King James tomorrow.
NIV And I heard tomorrow.
We'll read King James tomorrow.
If you have an opinion on this, of course, we'll have to hear it. Make it real quick. Kwablavi, who is in Pokuase, is sending a happy birthday wish to your sister, Augustina Addo. And Kwablavi says the reshuffle in ministerial position is irrelevant and will not bring anything good to Ghana.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this, there was commentary about, and I think it was really strong. Late yesterday or early this morning, there was going to be a reshuffle.
It's been going on for the last 24 hours.
Yes,
and
we've been receiving information. We've been receiving information from several sources at Jubilee House.
Somehow.
Yeah.
So this is going to happen.
Well, we'll see if the president doesn't change his mind, as is his prerogative.
But the president may not do it after all.
Yes, it could be that he will decide not to. But we've already heard some of the movements that are expected to happen.
Do we look at which one do you want to look
Yeah,
at?
let's do the daily graphic, and perhaps I'll quickly touch on the president's plans to modernize the public sector. A 5-year development plan or 5-year public sector reform strategy has been launched. And as part of the 5-year strategy, I'm quoting the story in the daily graphic, page 3, the human resource capacity of the public sector will be strengthened to improve public service delivery, while management initiatives will also be pursued to deal with apathy, resistance and reform fatigue, which have been the bane of previous reforms. Okay, strategy also envisages the establishment of central assets and inventory check system. They are going to go paperless as well. And the president says, look, international best practices should be followed.
What's that?
Yes.
International best practices means that by this time, if it was in the US, a Senate committee would have rounded up people in this bank problem.
That is international best practices.
So why are we quoting international best practices?
So we are giving ourselves 5 years to pay attention to what our neighbors and other countries are doing, so we can also start doing it.
Our neighbors,
But unfortunately, I can't see here, and maybe it's in the green book, but I can't see here anything about making it easier for public sector workers to be sacked. Because I think that sort of almost tenure that is given to you when you work for government is one thing that protects the wrong sort in public service, you know. And if in other countries, like we were talking about international best practice, in the UK, the job you can lose quickest is the government job, because you are being paid by everyone. It's not somebody's company where he can decide that no matter how criminal you are, he still wants to pay your salary. This one, it is the people's trust that has been placed in you. And the minute you violate it, even in the slightest way, you are gone. And being sacked is so bad that people rather resign than be sacked. These are some of the things that we need to start looking at. Look, somebody got sacked for watching porn in a hotel. And look, it wasn't even the public officer who watched the porn, it was her husband.
A hotel staff?
No.
I remember.
It was the husband of an MP.
Okay.
They traveled somewhere to work. They were in a hotel. And while they were in the hotel, the husband, who does not work for government, decided to watch porn. And it was put on the bill of the hotel. So the taxpayer paid £2 or something for some porn. And the MP who didn't watch some resigned. That is the nature of the trust that people put in a public servant. And if you violate it even by £2,
we'll get there someday.
Or your husband violates it by £2, you get sacked.
We'll get there someday.
Indeed.
There's even an ongoing issue in the UK currently, in which some MPs, I think they're numbering about 7 or so, they had their home and they decided to rent out their home and collect government money to go and stay.
That was a massive scandal.
You see?
Massive scandal.
Here. Charlie, which other is
Even
They'll say refund.
Even the Greater Accra regional minister.
Yeah, don't even
look, the Greater Accra regional minister who lives in the region of Greater Accra already before he was appointed.
Moves into a bungalow.
What is that? We are poor. We are a poor country. Look at what we are doing with our resources. MPs for constituencies in Accra. When the next time our dear friend Mr. Chemantini Jako is here, let's ask him how much government pays him for his accommodation and where he lived before he became an MP, and why government is paying him and other MPs for their accommodation. Are we not a poor country? Are we not a poor country? And by the way, it's not Mr. Jaco's fault. He didn't make the law. He didn't make the rules.
You're provoking him to come around this morning to come and
We'd love to
you.
see him. I always love it when he comes by in the morning. But no, let's be clear. He didn't make the rules, but those are the rules.
It's not anything personal.
Those are the rules. Yes.
Creating scenarios.
Yes, just an
example.
Just
that his name came up.
Okay,
because he's our friend.
we've got very little time now, so let's finish off quickly.
I've done the Business and Financial Times. You're having it.
Yes, let's do that quickly. Business and Financial Times has several stories on the front page. The one I want to talk about is Bank of Ghana officials and shareholders complicit in UT Capital Bank crisis. Now, they've gone all the way back to the beginning to talk about the two banks that collapsed first, UT and Capital Bank. Now, Capital Bank, their story is quite sordid. I think I'll start with that. Okay, so first of all, they applied to become a full Tier 1 bank, from first being First Capital Plus Savings and Loans. Okay, now they did some engineering. Yes, some kululu.
Engineering.
Okay, to set up the capital, the minimum capital requirement to become a bank. But they didn't
at the
stop.
time, the minimum capital
was 120 million. Yeah. Now you see, they could only have done this with the help of Bank of Ghana. The money wasn't there. Basically, the provisional license was issued on condition of an additional 60. So they found about 60 million. And then they were supposed to add an additional 60 million, but they were still given a provisional license. Okay. And the final approval was given with no evidence that the cash has been paid into an escrow account or anything. Okay. And they gave individual certificates. The shareholders presented individual certificates to say that the money is there, but it wasn't. Okay. So cast your mind to who the shareholders are.
Actually, this is what happened.
As a result of that, they had to go for 610 million Ghana cedis as liquidity support in 2017.
Okay, so before you get there, before you get there, let's get to the 60 million part. So they had, some of the shareholders had fixed deposits. Okay, and then they used that in presenting as part of their capitalization to establish.
Yes. Okay. But look, there was no evidence of the money's existence. Bank of Ghana didn't go and check that the money actually exists. They just said, "Some geo license." Okay. And we have to ask ourselves. Dama. Okay. We have to ask ourselves who at the Bank of Ghana did this? Who did this to us? Because as a result of that weak foundation, the bank never stood a chance. And eventually, when they were struggling, they went for 610 million Ghana cedis of our money, taxpayers' money, from the Bank of Ghana for liquidity support.
Means that use it to cushion yourself.
However,
use it so that you don't fall
liquidity
when
support.
there's earthquake.
So a bank needs liquidity for what? To pay its depositors. Okay, when you come to the bank, it is the bank's liquidity that they use to give you your money. And they couldn't do that. So they went to the Bank of Ghana for 610 million cedis so they can give you your money. But instead of giving you your money, they took some of it and used it to go and set up sovereign bank. Okay? They did this by putting 130 million and another 65 million in two institutions, All Time Capital and Nordia Capital. These two companies then used that money to go and set up sovereign bank, and that's another story for another day. But basically, they took the money from the taxpayer that they needed in order to keep liquid and used it to set up another bank with other people fronting it. And by the way, after they set up that bank, they went to the Bank of Ghana to take that money again. So basically, these people were just running things. So let me just say it that way.
So after they presented those certificates to the Bank of Ghana for the sovereign bank,
yes,
the Bank of Ghana had on its books certificates indicating that these investments were with Capital Bank, with, as being maybe treasury bills or whatever it is they were. Then the holders or those who owned that sort of investment at Capital Bank went behind the Bank of Ghana to go and liquidate.
Yes.
So the Bank of Ghana has on its files this certificate showing that, oh, this man has this amount of money in some fixed deposit somewhere.
And that is part of their...
It will mature at this point, and that one to become liquid and to come here.
And then they went to liquidate those assets.
So it was empty.
So Bank of Ghana, what's a hole? And these people went to liquidate assets that are supposed to be the capital, the capital for a bank. And by the way, later I'll read to you a statement from the Ghana Institute of Chartered Accountants, who are going to penalize the auditors of these organizations, because I mean, how can you have auditors? And
we have a full-blown conversation on this. So let's give the last few minutes that we have to read some messages that have come through. This one says, I'm praying that one day most Ghanaian youth will be self-employed and that our politicians will beg us into civil service. How many politicians will allow even their nephews and nieces to enroll in teacher and nurses training colleges? They train their children to become lawyers, entrepreneurs, politicians, to be more richer. Yabua Richard in
Agona
is sending this message. Okay, this is from Emmanuel.
That's why we're not rich.
Look,
okay, let's see.
Not for Robert and
this one says there are over thousands of pastors, missionaries who are doing the work of God sincerely, far away in the villages. Okay, that's
we're not talking about those people.
Include your name when you send us.
We're talking about televangelists.
Okay. Two or so more messages, and then we have to run. This is a bit long. Gracious from Asing Fosu. I'd like to know if the President and the Education Ministry, with the authority implementing a double-track system, have put the age of these young pupils into consideration before implementing. Well, I don't know how it matters or why it matters. This one says President Akufo is a good man. Okay. Mohammed Nuhu from Prestia sending this message. This one says, please help me wish my elder sister Angela Marian Mensah Nelson, whose birthday falls today. Gregory Mensah from New Jersey. Wishing you, Angelina Marian Mensah Nelson, is your birthday today. Elder sister, happy birthday to you. This one says, Kojo Sam says, I'm beginning to admire you for your strong and objective analysis on issues being discussed without fear or favor.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
It's Ike. Ike from Boko is sending this message, and this one says, as a Christian, I believe in tithing, just like Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul told the Corinthians to set aside some of money the first day of every... Is it every week? 1 Corinthians 16:2. Gascony in Kumasi.
He didn't call it tithing day, but that's another story for another day.
Malam is from an Arabic word, okay, which means someone who imparts knowledge or teacher. So if you describe the idolaters or shirk, which is an abominable act in Islam as Malams, then you have not been fair to the word.
Oh,
okay.
Forgive us. Thank you for that education, and forgive us. Yes,
but we're talking about the word.
Yes, it's a common term Ghanaians use, but
it's good that
the point is that is a wrong term, and thank you very much for that.
Listen,
but they are still called Malam.
Kojo, there are other facts coming through. Somebody says gets the facts right. The money involved was no, I thought this was related to the tithing, but this has to do with the MP. No, the UK MP. Somebody sending more facts. Emmanuel, thank you very much. I think it was just it wasn't necessarily about the very minute details. You gave us the right figures. We appreciate that. But it was just the whole idea.
Yes,
I guess. Yeah.
That's the point I was making.
There are many more messages that we can't get to right now because of time, but we will definitely return to the messages. So thank you. We're discussing the banking issue, where we are today, how we got here. Crisis. We've got some document to share with you.
Banking crisis.
And how come UT Capital Bank, a year on, nothing has happened, and all the big people with all the things they do, they're essentially working free, and it's Ghana Commercial Bank that absorbed them. Really? We'll come back to the matter. It's not dying. We're actually on this issue. Of course, the Bank of Ghana governor is doing such a great job, but it's all our responsibility to put a lot more pressure so that the people in authority who could do something about this will do it. It is one money. So stay with us. We'll come back with a lot more. Why y'all looking at me?
Yeah, it's a crisis. You're making look. You said Bank of Ghana something. Why is serious crisis though?
Yeah. This is not fair now.
It's not fair.
We're taking a break. Sports doesn't have a crisis, so we'll bring you the latest updates.